Good morning, everybody. Hope you're having an amazing day. This is your next installment of Chiro Stories. I believe this is volume 4. And this is Coleman, one of my favorite stories of all time. This is 10 years ago, because Coleman's 10 now. So I have a mom and a dad coming into the office. Mother is pregnant, and I take care of her through the entire pregnancy, and mother is going to deliver naturally at home. And as mother goes to deliver naturally at home, this baby boy that's coming out decided to be almost 11 pounds and got stuck in the birth canal. So, emergency situation. They rush her to the hospital. I get a phone call that next day from the father. Doc, something's not right with Coleman. His breathing, his heart rate, he's in ICU. They don't know what to do. They don't know what's wrong. Is there anything you can do? I said, well, there's no way I can just walk into an ICU and do anything. We're going to have to get approval from the attending doctor. This is how God works. At the time, I had one patient that was a pediatrician that came into the office. Guess who was on call at that moment with that patient at that time? My patient. And the doctor said, you tell Dr. Young that if there's anything he can do, he has my blessing to come. This was a Tuesday night. I went to the hospital. I walked into this little ICU room, and there was a nurse waiting on me. And as soon as I walked through the door, she knew who I was. She said, you must be Uncle Tim. And looked at me real funny. Yes, I'm Uncle Tim. So immediately I put on all the garb. I put on all the surgical stuff, the booties and the hat and all the things, whatever. So we go back into this other room, and there is mom and dad, Christy and Mark, 3 nurses, the nurse that followed me. Now we have 4 nurses. And then baby Coleman is over by himself, and it's the only baby in this whole room. We're the only ones in this room, and he's in this plastic tub with all these wires hooked up to him. So I walk up to mom just to say hi and kind of talk to her, and I looked up at her eyes, and there was no white. Every blood vessel in both her eyes had completely exploded. They were blood red, both of them. Bless her heart, she looked like she'd been run over by a truck. Just exhausted and just wore out. And I look at Mark, and he looked about the same way, just wore out. I said, what happened? She said, well, Coleman got stuck in the birth canal. We rushed to the hospital. They literally took their hand, they pushed him in, they turned his head, and they ripped him out of my body. And I had to take a deep breath, and I thought, okay, let's just take care of Coleman at the moment. So I turn around and I walk over and I look up, and on the monitor, the respiration, his respiration was so slow. I don't remember the exact number. It was like 6 or 8 breaths a minute. He was just laboring. He'd take a breath and quit breathing. Take a breath and quit breathing. But his heart rate was through the roof, man. His little heart was just pounding. So I looked down at this little baby boy, a day old, and I look at his eyes, and his eyes looked just like his mother's. There was not one white in them. All the blood vessels in his eyes had exploded. So you can imagine the amount of pressure that this young man had been under. So I reached down through the tubes and the wires and all the stuff, and I just set him up, right? And I took my thumbs and I started palpating, and I got down to about the 4th, 5th rib on the right. And it was sticking out so far that when I bent him over, it just was pushing. Took my thumb and I set the rib, and it just, you could hear it. I laid him down on his back. I reached under the atlas, and the atlas was so far lateral and so far posterior that it felt like the bone was almost dislocated. It was this was 10 years ago, and I can still feel it under my fingers today. I calmed myself, put my finger under that atlas, and my hand just moved. Atlas dropped. And I turned him and I laid him down. And I just watched him. That little man took a great big deep breath, and he turned over and he looked at me and he just breathed out. You could see him calm. I stepped back and I looked up, immediately on that monitor, his heart rate started dropping back to normal. His respiration come up. Me, mom, dad, and 4 nurses witnessed this. There was a older nurse kind of standing toward the back, her arms are crossed. She was livid that I was there. She was not about this at all. The only thing that was said at that moment was this from her: well, those machines aren't that reliable anyway. we all just kind of looked at her in disbelief that she actually said this. And we had kind of ignored her, and I walked up and I give Christy a hug, and I give Mark a hug, and I said, he's going to be fine. And I leave, and I go home, and I eat dinner, and get ready for the next day. And no, I did not charge him for this visit. I get asked that a lot. So the next morning, I'm with patients, and Dr. Pediatrician comes in, and he said, I don't know what you did. He said, but baby Coleman's going home today. He said, it's amazing. So what a great story. But wait, there's more. I think I'm going to start adding this to all my stories. 1 year later, I got invited to a little boy's first birthday. And if I was to go to every birthday party that I was invited to, I'd be going to birthday parties every single day. But this one was special. I felt like that we needed to go. And my wife actually went with me. So we went to Coleman's first birthday party. And it was, and I didn't tell you this, but the father was a pastor. And so the birthday party was at this big church. And there was literally over 100 people there. And there were parents with kids everywhere at this place. It was a big celebration. And as I'm looking around the room, I was blown away by how many parents and children were now patients of mine. The word spread and traveled, and it was, and you know, I didn't know they all came from the same place, but over half the church was patients now. What got me was they started before they cut the cake. We're gonna pray, and Mark, the dad, grabs the mic. It's a big church, got some mic, and he said, before we cut the cake, I'd like to pray. And everybody stopped, and he just started crying. And we're kind of caught off guard. And Christy, she's mom, she takes the mic. She said, oh, you big sissy, and everybody laughed. She said, what Mark wants to say is, we would love to thank God for chiropractic. Because if it hadn't have been for Dr. Young, him and his wife are here. If it hadn't have been for him and chiropractic, we wouldn't be celebrating today. We would have lost Coleman. For those of you that listen to this story, that have followed me this way, I have to articulate that moment there was not one dry eye in the place, especially me. I felt myself lose control. I cried like a little girl because I'm looking at this, and not only am I in awe of the moment and what an impact, but then it was such a unbelievable reminder of the power of what we do. Don't ever let anyone tell you that chiropractic does not change or save lives, because yes, it does. I've witnessed it too many times, and this is one of the biggest testaments to that. Fast forward 10 years later, my family has moved. They now live in Arkansas, but he has 2 other brothers, and I adjusted both those baby boys right after they were born, and they're all healthy and great. An amazing family, and I stay in contact with them. Long story, but it's a story worth listening to. It's a story worth watching and sharing with everybody you know, because chiropractic is God's gift to humanity. The adjustment is an extension from your soul to theirs. Never take it for granted. If there's anything I can do for any of you ever, it'd be an honor. I love you all, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.